Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Latrecchiano, and welcome back to your capstone course, CML 6275. I had a great week last week speaking to many of you regarding your projects on one-on-ones. Many of you took advantage of that time, and I think it was useful for most everyone to sort of talk out what they were thinking about, also sort of better understand what we're looking for in your assignments this semester. I think we're off to a really great start, although it's sort of halfway through the course, but I think many of you have already sort of zeroed in on the type of thing that you want to write about. We also, on those one-on-ones and also on the discussion boards, I've offered some insights into the disciplines and the literature that you might be looking for. Since week 4 is basically more of the same, working on your initial literature search findings and challenges. And I'm going to return to the matrix that you have to discuss further how you might be working with that. By the end of this week, we should be focused on the literature search, using the health sciences rapid review matrix to capture your notes. That's the matrix I just mentioned. And be sure to review the assignment details for your initial draft so that on April 10th, which is 2 weeks from now, you'll be able to provide that matrix along with the first draft of your paper. And what I want to talk about today is imagining how you might approach this assignment. I think for many of you, some of the topics you are interested in exploring come from real life situations that you might be experiencing in your work or you have experienced in your work history. And some of you are looking at things a little more broadly, which is fine as well. What I would suggest is to sort of create a case for yourself, an example. And it doesn't have to be real. It can be real, but could also be fictitious, where you're talking about either how change management is necessary, or you're talking about particular problem having to do with anything, retention, technology adoption, transforming a culture, etc. So even though we have provided for you sort of an outline of what the assignment, and I'll pull it up here, what the assignment should look like in the here we go. In the white paper, as you can see here, we've sort of outlined how you might be able to go about it. A brief introduction, an overview of the literature, a presentation, discussion of the major themes, include a short section that identifies gaps, meaning what didn't you find in the literature that you hope you would have found, a succinct and clear set of recommendations for consideration, an integration of the complexity and change material from earlier in the course, and then succinct closing to your paper with a brief set of recommendations. And I want to remind everyone, you're used to this, I'm sure, that we require APA style sheet guidelines in your writing. Now, as detailed as this is, I am more interested that you write a paper that you really feel passionate about. So this is just sort of an overview of guidelines. So imagine, starting off the paper talking about the importance of what you're interested in writing, then moving to some sort of real life or fictitious situation, unpacking that and using the literature to explain your position on it, and then how the complexity change material that you've been reading in the first couple weeks, how that interfaces with the problem that you're trying to address. Another way to look at this is there's a problem to be solved, and that as you think about either a real life situation or a fictitious one, that you're trying to solve some sort of problem that's going to require leadership, management, transformational or transactional styles, et cetera. Again, I'm just giving you more of a broad overview. If you do better in your writing, when you follow a more detailed outline like this in your assignment rubric, that is absolutely fine as well. So let me go back, close this. So let's talk again about the matrix you're using. By now, you should definitely be comfortable with the format, but also adding, I would say, anywhere from 10 to 20 articles that you might have looked at. Again, it's going to depend on your topic. I think for people who are concerned about how much literature should be part of your literature review, I would say, you might choose to look at 20 things, but in the end, you're probably only going to put like 8 to 12 citations in a paper this size. So if you, again, need sort of a guideline to go by, that's the guideline I would give. Your paper, of this size, again, will vary, 10 pages-ish. I don't want to see 25 pages, and I don't want to see 4 pages. So, if you feel that your writing just goes on and on, that's not necessarily going to help, because part of what we want to see is that you can take a limited amount of space to make your case and address all those things that are on the assignment guidelines for the paper. So in 2 weeks, you'll be providing this matrix, and you don't need to include these 2 examples because they're just examples. It'll give me an opportunity to review quickly the literature that you've consulted and also be able to possibly provide some feedback about how you might expand it or focus it more. A draft paper, and a draft paper should be a complete paper. However, you might not have everything thought out yet. So if you're concerned that a draft is really like your final draft, it doesn't have to be the case. What I'd like to see at least is that you've started to piece together all the pieces. So even in some areas, if you're like, I'm not sure what my recommendations might be yet, I can help you when I look at the paper and read it and possibly give you some more ideas on how to think about it. Okay. Lastly, I want to remind everyone that we will be having the first of 2 Zoom meetings on Wednesday night, the 29th, from 7 to 8 Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So I certainly hope you can make it. It is optional. I know we have a lot of time zones in this class. So, I'm tried to find something that was after work for the East Coast and still early enough for the West Coast. But as you know, we also have people in the Middle East. So we're trying my best to make this a reasonable time. So on Wednesday night from 7 to 8, we'll have an open Zoom meeting. And I want to encourage you to bring questions about your paper. We can talk further about how you might organize your material, your literature review, as you continue to collect it. But this is an opportunity for you to bring the agenda. I really don't have an agenda. It's just an opportunity for us to talk as a group and also share ideas, possibly, about how you have been doing your work so far. I also want to call your attention that I've created discussion boards that I call groups 1, 2, and 3. Although 3 isn't really a group, Alana has chosen that one area. But of course, these all overlap very much. I would encourage you as you're working to share your work, maybe get some specific feedback from people who are working on topics that are very close to yours, or at least in the same grouping of topics. And then lastly, I want to just encourage everyone to think about a title for your paper that's not the broad title. So if you're working in leadership, a catalyst for change and transformation, think of that as the umbrella, but you want to come up with a title that is much more specifically oriented to the context you're talking about. So a title for leadership, a catalyst for change and transformation could be something like using transformational leadership techniques to promote change in a nursing unit, in a freestanding pediatric intensive care unit, or something like that. It gives a much more focused sort of understanding to the reader as to what to expect. And I think too, once you sort of jot down a title, you get better at staying in the zone of the title and not, going into too many rabbit holes, or what I often call the syndrome of shiny things, where you read one thing and then you read something else and you're sort of looking in 5 different directions because everything might be interesting to you. But if you put down a title, it sort of gives you the boundaries, the parameters of how you're going to address the paper. Okay, so just to review, you'll be working on your I'm sure you started already. Continue to work on your matrix. Begin to start to write that draft. That'll be due on the April 10th of the paper. Continue to post if you have questions, ideas, comments for other people. I encourage folks that are in the same area of focus area, like the role and impact of digital health transformation, et cetera. Lean on each other because you are working in the same space. If you can, I encourage you to log in on Wednesday so we can share ideas, get more questions answered. And of course, remember, the literature for the course is part of your paper. So be sure that the literature of the course, and not all of it might apply to everything in your paper, is reviewed and added to that matrix so that you can understand what the value of that literature is as you piece together your ideas for the paper. As always, if you have questions that are general, please put them in the questions for the professor. If you require a one-on-one, I'd be happy to have a one-on-one. One caution is next Friday, I need to leave and be at Michigan State University for a week fellowship there. That doesn't mean I'm going to be untouchable. It's just I'm going to be in another time zone, and if you need immediate attention, it's probably going to be after hours because I have lectures to give and office hours to keep and so forth throughout the entire week. So I don't want you to think that that means I'm totally offline. It just means that I might not be online at the same times I usually am so far. Okay, so I wish everyone luck, and hopefully you're staying on track. I, again, have heard some really great stories from the people I met with and the types of problems they're hoping to solve. And I'm sure this is really going to be a really good semester for everyone. We're almost halfway through, so things are, believe it or not, these 8-week courses are short. So now we're entering into the part of the course where you really should be working as much as possible on these 2 first deliverables. And we will talk more about it on Wednesday night. I hope everyone has a great week, and I look forward to seeing you online or on Zoom or in the discussion boards. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.